As 2022 begins, we bring together a selection of our most confident pundits to make predictions on what's going to happen, even though last year most of them got it hopelessly wrong. But then we've still got their phone numbers and can't be bothered to find new people, so here we are. First up, let's speak to Sir Geoffrey Curmudgeon. Now, last year, Sir Geoffrey, you said that COVID would be over in just a couple of weeks and there was nothing to worry about. Well, yes, and I stand by that. COVID will be over in a couple of weeks and there is nothing to worry about. You've been saying that since the beginning of 2020. Yes, and eventually I'm going to be right. I'll turn to you now, Eddie McGee, podcaster, influencer and award-winning voice noter. This time last year you said that by now we'd all be living underground because the virus would have mutated to create swarms of flesh-eating zombies. I mean, I may have been a little dramatic, but we haven't reached the Amiga strain yet, so I'm holding on to my bunker. So will Boris Johnson still be Prime Minister at the end of this year? Yes. Look, we all know he's a clown, but he's our clown. Whilst people are distracted by the custard pie to the face and the exploding car, we pop round the back and pick their pockets. It's a great system. On the other hand, you do have to remember what his master said at Eton. I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, "This guy's a total git and I wouldn't let him anywhere near a leadership position or my wife." Or was that what I said at one of his weddings? I forget. Well, all I'd say is be careful what you wish for. If you look at the possible candidates within his party, it might be like replacing an old banger of a clown car with a skip made of jelly, or an angry bear, or Priti Patel. And bear in mind that the people who would actually select the new leader are an extremely small group of very right-wing people. The Tory party membership? No, the owners of The Sun, The Telegraph and The Mail. In football, this year we'll see an unprecedented Winter World Cup in Qatar. Yes, and the big question is, will the number of goals be higher than the number of workers killed building the stadiums? A big year in prospect for Emma Raducanu. Yes, it's important not to put her under too much pressure, but the question is, will she win another Grand Slam without losing a set, or will this year be a total failure? Turning to the arts, who will be the big winners at awards season this year? Well, this year I'd expect most of the Oscars to go to a bittersweet film that nobody watched, or a drama based on a true story starring a British actor pretending to be mad, an American actor pretending to be British, an Australian actor pretending to be mad and American, or Olivia Colman. And just before we go, there's talk of a new West End musical. Yes, COVID! A knockabout farce set in an ICU at the height of the pandemic, which has already been described as far too soon, utterly shameless, and surprisingly catchy. The thing you have to understand about the Prime Minister is he doesn't even like parties. Really? He seems to go to a lot. I mean, as a child, he'd far rather do play reading, or memorise poetry, or make plans to be king of the world. You know, normal kid stuff. Well, when I was a child, I liked playing with Star Wars figures. It doesn't mean that now I'm an adult, I don't like going to parties. It was his staff who organised the parties. He had nothing to do with it. But he still turned up. Well, it would be rude not to, wouldn't it? But it was the culture that was the problem, not him. So you're basically saying it wasn't Darth Vader who was the problem, it was the culture of the Death Star. Very clever. The point I'm making is that if he did go into the garden, which he's admitted, but Sue Gray hasn't confirmed that yet, if he did go into the garden, that was work. And if he had a drink, that was work. And if he had a bit of a snog, that was work. How can having a drink be work? He's supporting the wine industry. Was it British wine? God, I hope not. So do you really think he can survive this? Yes, I'm confident that he'll be able to weather the storm, because this week we're launching Operation Dead Meat Hot Dog. What? Sorry, I mean Operation Save Dead Dog with big meat. Minister? I mean Operation Save Big Dog with red meat. Got it. And what does that mean? We're appealing to the fundamental basic values of our voters, which are hurting people they don't like. Right. And? Probably something about fairness. I only skim-read the memo. So I understand that one plan is to order the Royal Navy to intercept small boats in the Channel. Yes, they'll be no match for our massive guns. But they're just escorting them to shore, where they'll be processed. For now. And Nadine Dorries has slashed funding for the BBC and announced the end of the licence fee. Well, I mean, I've never listened to the Asian network, so I don't see why I should be paying for it. Really? But seriously, we don't want the BBC gone. We just want it frightened. So it will stop going on about all these perfectly innocent parties. You do know the BBC didn't break any of the stories about the parties. Maybe it's losing its touch. Anything else in the plans? Oh yes, we're going to abolish all COVID restrictions. Because the pandemic is over? No, because it's harder to care about parties when you're gasping for breath. Thank you, Minister. Next up, as Novak Djokovic is deported from Australia, we ask which famous sportsperson would you like to be deported from this country, and why? Ooh, I'm having that. So if 30 people did sing Happy Birthday to the Prime Minister, that's just because they were all washing their hands at the same time. The Cabinet Room has a very large sink. I believe it's where Margaret Thatcher used to wash her hair, and David Cameron washed his pigs. As the newly appointed Minister for Inquiries, it looks like you're going to have your hands full. Indeed, we have a lot of things to look into. Breaking lockdown regulations, Islamophobia, fraud, 2 inquiries into Michael Fabricant. 2 inquiries? Yes, one into what he said on TV, and the other into his hair. Where are you getting the budget for all this? Well, we've replaced the Department for International Development, so it's fine. Didn't even have to change the letterhead. So you're the Department for Inquiries and Diversions. And can you guarantee that these inquiries are independent? Yes, I have a crack team of clones of Sue Gray who will ferret out all wrongdoing and report directly to the Prime Minister. But what if the wrongdoing was committed by the Prime Minister himself? Well, surely if the Prime Minister does it, that means it's not wrongdoing. That sounded a bit like something Richard Nixon might have said. I don't know what you're talking about. Are you really comparing Boris Johnson to the disgraced former president? No, and don't put words in my mouth. Anyway, I must go. I've just been informed that Nadine Dorris has sent a tweet, so no doubt we're going to have to set up another inquiry. Thank you, Minister. What a prick. What was that? What? What? Did you just call me a prick? I didn't know the mic was still on. So you're admitting you called me a prick? Well, that's a very serious allegation, and to show you how seriously I'm taking it, I'm going to set up an inquiry. But it happened just now on live TV? I'm afraid we'll have to wait for the results of the inquiry. I can show you the tape. I don't want to prejudge any possible investigation. Look, what a prick. Well, look, it's important to remember the context. What context? I've been working very hard, it's quite early in the morning, and a lot of people do think you're a prick. But as I say, I have to wait for the results of the inquiry before I can say any more. And now I really must go. Thank you, Minister. Results are in! It was just a gathering of up to 30 members of the same household to wish someone a happy birthday. But that was against the rules. Look, I'm sure COVID rules were broken in most homes. Are you saying you broke the rules? No, but I'm certain most people did. What are you basing that on? Have you met people? A lot of them are awful. What? And if you're saying that the Prime Minister was the only person who broke the rules, then that would imply that he's somehow worse than most people. And he's my leader, so what would that say about me? He may not be the only one who broke the rules, but he's definitely the only one who also wrote them. But did he break them? I mean, on his birthday, the Prime Minister was in effect ambushed with a cake. He did not demand the cake, or expect the cake, or plan for the cake. He did not enjoy the cake. He was in effect surprised by a group of up to 30 people. Why do you keep saying up to 30 people? Because the law at the time was that a group of over 30 people would incur a £10,000 fine. And if Boris had to pay that, well, he'd have to get a loan from another donor, which means another peerage. Do you not feel any shame about what you're saying? No, I want him to stay as Prime Minister. And anyway, I'm trying to win a bet. A bet? We're running a book on who can say the most insane thing to defend the Prime Minister. Andrew Rossendale was in the lead with his, well, he didn't rob a bank, but I think I've just overtaken him. Really? There was one contender ahead for a while, but then we discovered they were just a comedian parodying us. So hard to tell these days. Do you wish you could be talking about something else? Well, of course, you'd expect me to say yes. I'd much rather talk about the cost of living crisis, or the Northern Ireland Protocol crisis, or the crisis in Ukraine. Well, yes. But in fact, we're responsible for the first two and can do absolutely sod all about the third, so to be honest, I'd much rather talk about cake. Thank you, Minister. Next up, as the highway code is updated with new rules on cyclists and pedestrians, we ask, why are so many other people terrible drivers, and why can't they just get out of the way? Can't they see you're in a hurry? I've said all along that we have to wait for Sue Gray to have her say. Now, Sue's had her say on Sue Gray Day, which is, hey, today. So I say, hooray. Let's move on. I would like to apologise to anyone who was offended by what happened in Downing Street during the pandemic. Only the parties, gatherings, work events, obviously. Everything else was great. I want, in all humility, and without mitigating or extenuating anything that Sue said, to provide some context for what Sue said, which should mitigate and extenuate everything that Sue said. I am humbled and would like to renew my apology for my birthday party. Because it was rubbish. I mean, if I'd known how much trouble I get into for it, I'd have at least asked my ethics advisor if I could borrow her karaoke machine. I take full responsibility for everything that happened. Which basically involves me saying I take full responsibility for everything that happened, and then doing nothing. I immediately replaced the senior management team because I've always said that the buck stops just below me. I was appalled to hear of the disrespect and poor treatment of our security and cleaning staff, and I have apologised to all of them. I think. It's not like I know any of their names. Look, people in Downing Street worked very long hours under very difficult conditions. I mean, sometimes they'd stay as late as 4 p.m, and occasionally we ran out of wine. Leaving parties are vital to the running of any organisation. Many times, the happiest I've ever seen a staff member is at their leaving party. And I think that says a lot. When I attended these events, they were not against the law. It was only when I left that things got a little bit crazy, which I'm trying not to take as a personal insult. I mean, in the end, what are we all doing here? You know I'm not going anywhere. I know I'm not going anywhere. Half of my MPs can barely write their own name, let alone a letter to Graham Brady. You're stuck with me, and I'm stuck with you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a war to fight. And once I've dealt with Liz and Rishi, I'll get stuck into Putin. So why did Vladimir Putin invade Ukraine? Well, I've heard a number of theories. For example, Putin never accepted the breakup of the Soviet Union and wants to recreate the Russian Empire. Right. Or that he wants to have control over Kiev, the birthplace of the Russian Orthodox Church. I see. Or that he's trying to force NATO into concessions while he still controls a large portion of the European energy market. It does sound complicated. But I believe that I have uncovered the true motivation for Putin's war. What's that? Gender-neutral toilets. Sorry? And arguing about which Halloween costumes we're allowed to wear. Are you talking about cultural appropriation? Yes, Putin has seen us worrying about whether a sombrero is offensive to Mexicans or wearing a kimono is somehow anti-Japanese and has decided that we're weak. Really? Our culture has become lazy, complacent, and decadent. That's exactly what he'd say. Well, we have to show him we're none of those things. How? National service. What? If all of our young men were trained to kill, he'd have thought twice about going into the Ukraine. It's just Ukraine. There's no the. You see, this is my point. Who cares about pronouns when there's a war on? But the isn't a pronoun. It's a definite article. You're a definite article. You've also said that our society has become too polarised. Yes, people are obsessed with the culture war, and Putin has exploited that. So how do we end the culture war? One side needs to admit defeat. Which side? The woke one, the one obsessing about equality and diversity and minority rights. But couldn't you argue that those are some of the things that make our society different to Putin's Russia? And that's the problem. We need to get over this identity politics and focus on what unites us, not what divides us. Such as? Being proud to be British again. Isn't that really just another form of identity politics? That sounds suspiciously woke to me. Are you sure this is really about Ukraine? What do you mean? Well, you've been criticising wokeness and identity politics for years. Are you sure that Vladimir Putin really cares about any of that? Are you saying that I'm simply crowbarring my pre-existing prejudices into a situation that has nothing to do with them? Well, maybe. This is typical liberal media censorship. You don't get this sort of thing on Russia Today. I think we'll leave that there. Next up, as energy prices continue to rise, we uncover a plan to send every household a pallet of unused PPE that they can burn for warmth. So Boris Johnson told the House of Commons that all guidelines were followed, and yet the police have started handing out fines. He misled the House, didn't he? Can I just say that I think it's great that we don't live in Putin's Russia and that you're allowed to ask me these questions. You support a free press. Bear in mind that free doesn't have to be mean. So did Boris Johnson mislead the House? No, he didn't mislead the House, because when he said that all guidelines were followed, he genuinely believed it, even though he was at some of the parties. Yes, isn't that a great trick? Genuinely believing something you know not to be true. Isn't that acting? And they give awards for that, even if you hit someone. So he doesn't take any responsibility. No, the Prime Minister takes full responsibility for everything that happens in number 10. So when people in number 10 are fined, that's his responsibility. Yes, and he'll be fully accountable. So he'll resign? Absolutely not. He may be responsible and accountable, but that doesn't mean it's his fault. Sorry, can you define the word responsibility? Oh, wasn't prepared for that. I've got this bookmarked on woman. How about accountable? Something about numbers? The Prime Minister hosted a party last night for his MPs. Were you there? Look, it wasn't a party. It was simply a gathering of friends and colleagues where we had a few drinks and celebrated getting all the calls right and ending the pandemic. The pandemic that's still happening. Agree to disagree. So if it wasn't a party, how do you define party? Look, get your own dictionary. And I think you have to remember something. What's that? There's a war on. Do you really think you should be asking me these questions whilst people are dying? You just talked about the importance of a free press. There's a war on. Yes, but this country isn't technically at war, so don't just because we're not at war doesn't mean there's not a war on. And whilst there's a war on, I think you should give more respect to the government. But there's always a war on somewhere. Wouldn't that mean you'd never be subject to scrutiny? Sounds good to me. Thank you, Minister. Next up, as Western powers condemn Russian imperialism, we'll speak to a historian who'll explain why it's completely different to British imperialism by talking exclusively about railways. So the Prime Minister, his wife and the Chancellor have all been issued with fixed penalty notices. I'm joined now by the MP for Lichfield. What do you make of all this? Well, it's been a long time coming and now it's come, which I believe is one of the Prime Minister's favourite sayings. How bad does it look for Boris Johnson? The thing is that I don't think that Boris Johnson thought he was breaking the law. Just like he didn't think he was lying when he said he hadn't gone to any parties. It's amazing what he can think or not think when he puts his mind to it. He just thought he was like those nurses and teachers who, after a very long shift, would go back to the staff room and crack open the booze. Which nurses and teachers? Look, I don't blame them. We all need a drink at the end of the day, and at the start of the day. And during the day. I mean, I'm having a drink right now, which probably explains a lot. Sorry, do you know nurses and teachers who actually did this? Because, well, all the key workers I've spoken to said that they weren't allowed to socialise at all, and that places like staff rooms were shut, and, well, they'd never even dream of drinking at work. Goodness me, your questions are longer than my answers. Are they also more truthful? Touché. All I can say is that yes, I know several nurses who get absolutely blotto after work, especially those responsible for my complexion and hair. What about the suitcases of alcohol? Well, that's fair enough. There's no bar in Downing Street, unlike most schools and hospitals, I assume. So you think all of the parties were okay? Now, I don't know about any birthday parties because I wasn't invited to them. Not because they don't like me, because they didn't want to give me COVID. Because I wasn't already working cheek and jowl with them. What? Oh, come on, you remember the slogan, stay at home, protect the NHS, only give it to your work colleagues. Catchy, wasn't it? Labour are calling for resignations. Well, Keir Starmer needs to make up his mind. Only last week he said that Boris shouldn't resign, and now that the situation's changed, he's changed his position. Obviously can't be trusted. You're very loyal, aren't you? I'm not always loyal. I do sometimes vote against the government if they're proposing something sensible, but you still support the Prime Minister. Yes, and I know there'll be a lot of exasperated people watching this, throwing up their hands thinking, what's he talking about? And I also know quite a lot of them will really fancy some banoffee pie. Yes, I'm disappointed, I'm angry, and I can see why members of the public are furious, but in the end, the Prime Minister is my boss, and no one wants to upset their boss, do they? Okay, technically the British public is my boss, but they can't fire me, can they? I'm in a safe seat. This all happened 2 years ago. The world has moved on. He's broken many more laws since then. Look, it was just a small gathering with some cake, and let's not forget that he's now leading the coalition supporting Ukraine. It was 9 minutes with a cake, and he's now the de facto leader of the free world. It was 8 minutes with a bun, and he's on the front line. We're talking 5 minutes with some toast, and don't forget he's flying fighter jets. You're going on about 2 minutes with a handful of flour, when he's literally fighting Putin hand to hand. It's time to move on. He got all of the big calls right at our regular in-person poker nights. About the handling of the pandemic, less so. He personally developed, tested and distributed our world-beating vaccine. Without Boris, those scientists wouldn't have known what to do. Remember, he was the first brave world leader to go to Ukraine. What, Ursula von der Leyen and the Slovakian, Slovenian and Czech prime ministers went there first? Okay, he was the first world leader that I've heard of to go to Ukraine. He's not perfect, he's flawed. He erred. He also ummed and ahed and went blah, 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 quite a lot too. He didn't go out with malice and deliberately break the law. He did it by accident because he's stupid. Well, it's one or the other, isn't it? In the end, does it matter if he lies occasionally? He tells the truth most of the time, more than half the time, probably around 52% of the time, which as we all know is plenty. Keep on moving, don't stop. Yes, he told us what the rules were, but that doesn't mean he knew what the rules were. He's perfectly able to speak without listening to himself. I mean, how else could he cope? His officials wished him happy birthday, sang happy birthday to him, then gave him a birthday cake. And then they told him that he wasn't at a birthday party. And he believed them. Was that a crime? Well, apparently yes. What did the cow say to the captain of England's 2005 Ashes winning team? It's time to move on. It's just a bit of fun. You see, now you're angry about that pun instead of at the Prime Minister. But seriously, it's time to move on. People often ask me, why did I want to become an MP? Was it to help people, to make a difference in my community, to prove to my father that I was deserving of his love? For the pussy? Well, no. The reason I became an MP was all about having the chance to go on television and radio and defend the Prime Minister in as many embarrassing ways as possible. Because being an MP is a privilege that only a few people ever get to experience, and if I don't use that privilege to show my loyalty to a man who doesn't know the meaning of the word by debasing myself on the airwaves, then what am I really doing with my life? Of course, it's not always easy. Constituents get in touch asking me to address their concerns or help them with some issue or other, and it takes real laser focus to concentrate on what's actually important, staying up to date with whatever ludicrous excuse he's come up with this time, then repeating it on broadcast media. He accepts full responsibility, but doesn't accept he did anything wrong. His officials didn't tell him that it was a birthday party, so how could he be expected to know that it was? Okay, they had a few drinks, but nurses and teachers were getting rat-arsed every night. In many ways, he was ambushed by cake. I can't tell you, it's such a rush. I feel like I'm flying. And just like flying, there's only one rule. Don't look down. Did he lie, or does he simply have a different view of the truth? It really is exhilarating. You can keep your rock climbing, your base jumping, and your non-domming. This is the most thrilling game in town. Why are you attacking the only man that Putin fears? The rules are simple. Abase yourself as much as possible without becoming a meme, and if you're still in the House of Commons after the next election, then you've won this round. I think the public are bored of hearing about all our scandals, so maybe you should stop reporting them. Some people say I'm being humiliated. I say shame is overrated, and I'm in a safe seat, so I can really throw myself into it. to it. If committing a crime makes you a criminal, then I guess I'm on the side of the criminal in this specific case. Anyway, I must go. I've just heard he's been fined again, and I need to go on Newsnight to explain whether that actually makes him a better Prime Minister. And don't two wrongs make a right? I might also have a pop at the church. I've got the best job in the world. That was a party political broadcast on behalf of the Conservative Party. I also went into politics because I believe that governments are no good at solving problems, so I became a minister and proved myself right. Some disturbing new reports coming out of Downing Street. A whistleblower spoke to us on condition of anonymity. His words are spoken by an actor. So, what happened at these events?
There were 30 or more people there, shoulder to shoulder, on people's laps, enjoying a drink, letting their hair down.
Dancing?
Yes, dancing, snogging, vomiting, empty bottles all over the place. Everything you'd expect.
When did you realise that something was wrong?
Not at first, but then I began to notice little details. Laptops on desks, filing cabinets, red boxes.
Ministerial red boxes?
As it turned out, yes. And I began to realise something.
What was that?
That some people thought we were in a workplace, and not a club.
That must have been disturbing.
It was. There we were, having a lovely time without a care in the world, and yet there was this nagging suspicion that some people weren't getting into the spirit of it.
Did that include the Prime Minister?
We would never have called him that, of course. He was DJ Bojo at all times, but now I think about it, maybe I did see him writing something down at one point. Perhaps he was secretly working, or maybe he was just giving a woman his number.
When was all of this happening?
Doors opened at 4 p.m. most days, but I'm ashamed to say that I think I saw some people on their work email accounts at gone 7.
That must have been very distressing for you.
Yes, I mean literally nowhere else was open, and to think that they were wasting that opportunity, well, it's just criminal.
Yes.
It made a mockery of everything we were trying to achieve.
When you look back at it now, what are your thoughts?
We could have drunk more. We could have done at least another suitcase of wine. We could have broken more swings. And in the end, isn't that the real tragedy?
Thank you, Michael. The government is saying that if your members continue to strike, they will bring in agency workers. I'm guessing that your members will stay on the picket lines. What will happen if the agency workers try to cross those picket lines?
Well, we'll picket them. What do you think we'll do?
And what will that involve?
We'll ask them not to go to work. Do you know how a picket line works?
Of course I do. I'm not as young as I look.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise.
It's not a medical thing.
Right?
So, what will picketing involve?
It's standing outside a workplace asking people not to go to work. What else would it involve?
Well, I'm just wondering if it might involve something else. Something beginning with V?
Verbal exchanges, certainly.
Something beginning with VI?
Visualising a better paid workforce.
VIO?
Violins. Well, if the Musicians' Union wants to show solidarity, that'd be nice.
Put it another way. Say that an agency worker decided to cross the picket line, but as they did so, they tripped and fell. What would your members do?
What are you trying to get me to say?
Would they make physical contact?
This line of questioning is ridiculous.
I'm sorry you feel the need to ridicule me.
You're right, you're doing a pretty good job of that on your own.
Okay, how about if some agency staff decided to cross the picket line, but they were also flesh-eating zombies? How would your members react?
I'd hope they'd stay away from them.
What if they were cornered?
I'd say it was a weird place to put a picket line.
They're cornered, but they do have weapons.
Is this an interview or an improv game?
We're running out of time. Zombies are trying to cross a picket line, and your members are cornered, but armed. What would they do?
Well, I hope they'd defend themselves, like we're defending the right...
There you have it, a warning that picket lines could turn violent in the future. Thank you. Now let's go over to a government minister for his reaction. This is a vision of the chaos we'd have under a Labour government. But you've been in government for over a decade. Exactly. Imagine how much worse things could be if we hadn't been. So what are you going to do? Well, it's up to the Labour Party, isn't it? They have all the power, despite not being in government. That's how sneaky they are. So if Labour have all of the power, despite not being in government, what's the point of voting for you? Vaccines? Thank you, Minister. Next up, we speak to a writer who is very angry about the rail strikes, despite having worked from home for the last 17 years. Hi, I'm Johnny Smash, truth teller, influencer, journalist, scourge of the woke, and now social media sensation. Even my friends say that the best thing about me is I'm a character. I just wanted to say a big smash thanks to everyone who's been sharing my stuff recently, especially my recent interview with a trade union official, which has gone absolutely viral. 11 years ago, you tweeted, "May the 4th be with you," and yet more recently you've claimed not to be a Star Wars fan. What's going on? My fearless forensic reporting has been seen all around the world and commented on by thousands of people. What they're saying isn't important, for as Oscar Wilde once quipped, it is better to be laughed at than not to be laughed about at all. Was that Gandhi? Churchill? one of the big hitters. Be honest, you think Darth Vader is cool. If you take the nearly 3 million people who've watched that video online and add them to the viewing figures for my TV show, you'll find I have nearly 3 million viewers. Suck on that, terrestrial TV. Your time is over. Because I ask the uncomfortable questions that no one else will. 7 years ago, you shared a picture of a red flag on your Instagram account, which I assume means that you would also pick a red lightsaber, which would make you a Sith, and the Sith are the evil ones. Are you a Sith? People laughed at me when I stormed off my job on a primetime show to go and work for No Snowflakes TV, but I think you can agree that now that I'm world famous for asking all the tough questions, I made the right call. I'll ask you again, would you have sex with an Ewok? Answer the question. Are you alright? That's why I'm relaunching my show for the 3rd time. No more Johnny Smashes the Woke or Please God Watch I Really Need This. I'm back with More Heat, Less Light, where I'll be getting into as many arguments as I can in a not at all desperate attempt to start trending on Twitter again. Which are better, cats or dogs? Jam or cream first? Your mum smells. Prove me wrong. Watch as a once, for some reason, highly respected media commentator is reduced to paying people to come on my show and be shouted out for not answering the questions that no one really wants to hear the answers to. But what would Diana think? More Heat, Less Light, with Johnny Smash, coming soon to a TV screen near you. Or more realistically, your phone screen when you're having a poo. Now that we're past the watershed, we can turn to the behaviour of the Parliamentary Conservative Party. Please note that the following report does contain descriptions of a sexual nature involving MPs. Children and those of a more delicate disposition should switch over now. Perhaps watch something less traumatic, like Chernobyl. Yes, that's right, we're talking about Deputy Chief Whip and winner of this year's Mr. Nominative Determinism, Chris Pincher, who narrowly beat out Jonathan Bigot, Archie Takes Bungs and James Cleverly to the title. He's resigned from his post after getting very drunk and allegedly groping 2 men at the Carlton Club, an establishment that only admitted women members in 2008 and whose dress code includes no jeans-style trousers or their close relations, but makes no reference to wandering hands. Pincher is, of course, not the first Tory MP to be accused of sexual impropriety. The recent by-elections in Wakefield and Tiverton and Honiton were triggered by one MP being convicted of sexual assault and the other watching pornography in the House of Commons. These were just a couple of bad apples, and you know the saying, 2 bad apples tells you nothing about the moral character of the other apples in the barrel. She's my mistress. The opposition have demanded that Pincher have the whip removed, which is thankfully less exciting than it sounds, and the Prime Minister is being urged to act once somebody has explained to him why groping is wrong. All of which begs the question, why does this party, led by a serial adulterer with an indeterminate number of children, whose initials seem to match his favourite office relaxation activity, seem so morally bankrupt? Well, you know what they say, a fish rots from the middle. Oh God, another wrong one. It really is a mystery. Back to the studio. Thank you. Next up, as the US Supreme Court announces a series of extremely right-wing rulings, we debate whether an anti-democratic institution with lifetime appointments is really fit for purpose in the modern world, whilst trying not to mention the monarchy or the House of Lords. Why so serious? Good afternoon. It is clearly the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that for some reason they want a new leader, and therefore a new Prime Minister. I can't think why. They've got a perfectly serviceable one right here, but I guess, shit happens. I've agreed that the process of selecting a new leader should begin soon and end sometime after I've been Prime Minister longer than Theresa May. I want to say something to the people who voted for us in 2019. Some people who voted Conservative for the first and, let's face it, last time. Thank you. Thank you for giving me personally, and only me, an incredible mandate, which I've absolutely loved having. Cheers. It's been a blast. I'm immensely proud of all of the stuff that I always say at these things, getting COVID and Brexit so done that they're really still causing massive problems, something out of date about vaccines, and of course being the only person in the world to stand up against Putin. Let me just say to the people of Ukraine, once this mess is all over, finally I'll be able to go and fight on the front lines over there in Kyiv. And do you know what? The Ruskies won't know what hit them. I'm very proud of just how much we've talked about investing in skills and infrastructure whilst actually cancelling projects left, right and centre. Because if I have one insight into human beings, watching you as I do from my superior perch, it's that genius and talent and imagination and enthusiasm are evenly distributed throughout the population, if not in my cabinet. At this point, I'd just like to apportion more credit to myself. Nearly got you there, didn't I? I've tried to persuade my colleagues that it would be absolutely stark, raving bonkers to change leader at a time of crisis, but, the herd instinct is powerful. And I'm not suggesting there that all of the Tory party are cows, but that's only because I would rather use a different word beginning with C. To the new leader, whoever he or she may be, I'd just like to say that I will be giving you as much support as I can be bothered to. A few of you are probably relieved, happy, delirious. A lot of you are going to be drunker tonight than a Downing Street staffer during lockdown. But I think a few more of you might be disappointed, and not just Nadine. I want you to know just how sad I am that I'll be giving up the best job in the world. But them's the breaks. Win some, you lose some. Can't win them all. In vino veritas. Terra Salata. Now I'd just like to thank a list of people, like I've just won an Oscar and not been forced out of office because of a lack of integrity, including my family, those I know, and of course those I don't. So I know that at this point what you all want me to say is that I'm going to resign myself to a further period in office as Prime Minister, because being Prime Minister is the greatest education that I've ever had. So suck on that, Eton and Oxford. I've travelled the length and breadth of this fine country. I've been to England, Scotland, the other ones, and I've slept with so many fascinating people. People willing to solve old problems in new ways, which is very much the reverse of my approach, which is solving new problems in old ways, which is very much why all of those new problems have not been solved. Finally, I want you all to know that whatever happens, however dark things may seem, that I am going to be fine. Thank you very much. Oh, and Michael, you're fired again. Hasta la vista, baby!
Let me start by saying that the Prime Minister has been very impressed with your work so far. Oh, thanks. When you headhunted me from Make-A-Wish, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. You know how to make people's dreams come true, and so far so good. He's been up in a fighter jet, he's played at being a soldier, even got to throw a pretend grenade. That was a bonus. In fact, he said to me last night, it's made being Prime Minister totally worth it. I'm glad, although I was under the impression that I was going to be doing more charity work. This is charity work. He's been a very hard-working PM, and he deserves a few treats, don't you think? Plus, he's hardly loaded. He couldn't afford his own wallpaper. Right. So I'm just checking in to see how you're doing with the rest of his list. For example, have a go on an aircraft carrier and look through a periscope on a submarine, then shout, dive, dive. Well, the Navy are a bit worried about Ukraine at the moment, so you could make Nadine Dorris Defence Secretary for a bit. I'm sure they'll come around. Good, good. Now just a few more things he wants to pack in before Lizzo or Snake Boy takes over. Have you got a pen? Yep. So, close down a coal mine, might have to open one first, dress up in a suit of armour, pilot a drone, car chase down the Mall, supermarket sweep, but in Harrods, snog Kylie Minogue, hack into Putin's emails, meet Peppa Pig, snog Mummy Pig, play Hamlet at the Globe, threesome, perform surgery. What? Well, nothing big, just removing a gallbladder or something. Score a century at Lord's, a goal at Wembley, a 147 at the Crucible, a hole-in-one at St Andrews, meet Beyoncé, threesome with Beyoncé, that's underlined, and try on the Queen's hat. Sorry, the Queen's hat. Yes, you know, the sparkly thing she wears on her head for the state opening of Parliament. Her crown. I say hat, you say crown. Let's call the whole thing off. No, he really wants this. And also to sit on her shiny chair for a bit. The throne. Got it in one. I don't think she'll be very keen on that. Tell her, if not, we'll release the rest of the Andrews stuff. She'll know what I mean. Right, okay. Is that it? Actually, no. Find him an audience to do his final speech in front of who definitely won't boo or heckle. Well, that's going to be difficult. I suppose we could go to a primary school? Too risky. Some of them might be his. Conservative Party conference? Perfect, as long as no MPs are there. Oh, sorry, just one more thing. What now? I've just had a message from Liz. She was asking, are there any children she could be filmed taking milk away from? And who do you call to get turned into iron? Hello and congratulations, soon-to-be Lord or Lady. Lord. Yes, if you're seeing this, then you have been handpicked to join the most prestigious club in the country, sometimes known as the Other Place or the Second Chamber. We do normally like to do these calls in person, but there are so many of you joining soon, and besides, the Prime Minister's busy, no doubt working on a new book or child. You might be thinking, why me? Why have I been chosen to join the UK legislature alongside former ministers, experts, and even a few bishops for some reason? What do I, a regular donor to the party, a former party treasurer, or a businessman who likes Brexit, delete as appropriate, have to offer?
Well, we believe that anyone who still supports this government deserves a reward. And if levelling up doesn't mean increasing the level of our support in the unelected bit of our parliament, then I don't know what does. Plus, it's possible you're northern. You will be appointed a life peer in Boris Johnson's resignation honours list. And if you don't understand what those terms mean, life peer means you have power but can't be sacked. A bit like a handsy DJ. And every PM gets a resignation honours list. You know, like in a normal job, when you get fired, you might steal a few things from the stationery cupboard and put a few prawns in your boss's desk. Well, think of yourself as a prawn, and the next government is the desk. I hope that's clear. I'm sure by now that you're already considering your title and wondering which of your outfits looks best with ermine, but before that, there is one little thing that you have to do. You have to agree to turn up and vote for everything we tell you to. I mean, the first bit shouldn't be too onerous. There is a very generous turning up allowance. And look, of course, we would expect you to use your independent judgment and carefully consider every piece of legislation that goes before you, as long as you then vote for it anyway. Don't worry, we won't ask you to vote against your interests. In fact, you might have lobbied for it before you became a lord, which would be neat. And remember, all of that human rights malarkey only really applies to those people. You know who I'm talking about. If it helps, think of yourself as a rubber stamp made of prawns. Please be assured that this is all completely above board. It's not bribery, it's the British honours system. It's not corruption, it's fine. If this all sounds good, and why wouldn't it, just pop us a quick reply to the address you normally send your cheques to, and no doubt we'll be seeing you on the red benches in no time. Oh, and if anyone is watching this video who isn't on our list, be aware that this is all a joke and we didn't mean any of it. Now, Suella says we're covered. As the race to be Prime Minister narrows to two final candidates, we're speaking to spokesmen for Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. Can I just say that we don't want any blue-on-blue attacks today? I quite agree, violence against the police is awful. No, I mean that we're not going to engage in any negative campaigning. I think people can just look at the two candidates and agree that the best man should win. Yes, just because somebody's completely screwed our economy doesn't mean he's a bad person. What will you actually do differently? Well, after 12 long years of mismanagement and decline, this country is in need of a change. Of government. No, of Prime Minister. It's like if a fridge isn't working, what do? You replace the handle. Or hide inside and hope everyone goes away. Following the heat wave this week, climate change is a hot topic. Excuse the pun. Ha, what's a pun? What are your candidates' views on the environment and net zero? We're going to keep the ban on onshore wind farms because although climate change is an existential threat that requires bold and immediate action, it isn't quite as important as the views from a few voters' second homes. Yes, as far as we're concerned, net zero refers to the number of Tory party members who will be alive in 2050. You're both bidding to replace Boris Johnson, and yet he remains quite popular among the membership of your party. What would you say to them? I'd say he was a good Prime Minister who got all the big calls right, but he was also dishonest and untrustworthy and had to be replaced as soon as we could work out how to use Squarespace to build our new website. Both of your candidates were in his cabinet, so aren't they partly responsible for his failings? Well, Liz was Foreign Secretary, so she spent much of her time abroad, standing up to strong men, but not the one in her own country. But look, Rishi's travelled too, all over this United Kingdom, from Darlington in Scotland to Cheshire in Wales, raising taxes wherever he went. Only because Boris made him, but look, when he becomes Prime Minister, nobody will be able to tell Rishi what to do ever again. Well, except the electorate. Yes. You've both invoked Margaret Thatcher in your campaigns. Why is that? This country is calling out for her like a tiny bird that's lost its mother. We can't reanimate her corpse, God knows we've tried, but we can reanimate her policies and hope that works. Like a sort of Thatcherite cargo cult. What did you just call me? We need tax cuts. What? That will just be inflationary. You're inflationary. At least I know what inflation is. So do I. It's woke, and therefore bad. There will be members of your party watching this, wondering why you're not focusing on the real enemy. Jeremy Corbyn. Well, the Labour Party. I was going to say the inexorable march of time, but yeah, let's go with that. Following the death of Her Majesty the Queen, companies and organisations across the UK are being warned that whatever they do, it will definitely be wrong. Our chief mourning correspondent, Jonathan Goodenough, has more. Yes, that's right. I'm here outside a leisure centre which has closed out of respect and yet has been inundated with angry messages from people who don't believe that children going without exercise is what the late monarch would have wanted. It's not just leisure centres though, is it? No, that's right. Hospital appointments have been rescheduled, food banks are closing, and many events have been cancelled out of respect. Out of respect. Out of respect. Experts have suggested that this sudden economic slowdown could bring on a recession more quickly, which some people might say means that even the economy feels sad. Is anyone actually saying that? I am. We've also just heard that Guinea Pig Awareness Week has been postponed. Out of respect? Yes, apparently the new king really hates the little furry freaks and doesn't want anyone to know anything about them. Did you just make that up? Yes, I did. So is the public mood clear that these cancellations are wrong? Absolutely not. I've spoken to several businesses who've been criticised for not closing their doors during this national time of mourning. Who is making these criticisms? If you close your eyes and imagine them, you won't go far wrong. Supermarkets such as Tesco and Waitrose have said that they're closing their doors on Monday, haven't they? Yes, that's right. All stores will be closed out of respect, except for stores along the route of the funeral procession, which will be open out of respect for the people who are paying their respects and might want some crisps. So what should businesses do? Well, it's obviously a very complicated issue, but my advice would be don't go anywhere near social media, pop a black and white photo in your window, and hope that none of your customers writes for the Daily Mail. Totally useless. Now, on a lighter note, so many Paddington Bear toys have been left in front of Buckingham Palace that officials have asked people to stop. Indeed, although we've heard that this might be because the new Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, just doesn't have the resources to get them all sent back to Peru, via Rwanda. Thank you, Jonathan. Next up, as Ukraine mounts an extraordinary counter-offensive, inflation continues to rise, Liz Truss appoints more ministers, a young black man is shot by the police, Sweden lurches to the right, and the effects of climate change ripple around the world, we meet a young child who's baked a cake in the shape of the new king, and chat to her for like 5 minutes. Are you a government with limited time to make an impact and big bills to pay, but you don't want to ask your rich friends to chip in? Do you believe that the best way to beat inflation is to give it a stern talking to? Have you always fancied trying out some of your wacky ideas on a massive scale? Then you need gambling with other people's money. Convinced that cutting taxes actually leads to more revenue? Then roll those dice. Want to chuck everything on credit with an IOU that reads, "In Truss we trust"? Then deal those cards. Declare you're after a high-wage economy whilst telling everyone they can't have pay rises? What are you waiting for? Spin that wheel. Because you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, and you can't make a profit without taking risks. And after all, it's not really a risk if it's not your money, and let's face it, those eggs were never going to vote for you anyway. But what happens if the markets spook and the pound falls? Don't worry, your mates will have shorted it. If interest rates soar and house prices crash? Chill out, dude, that's just more cheap property for your donors to buy. Won't public services crumble and crime explode? Well, you'll be fine. You're with Bupa, and you know Tai Chi. Remember, gambling is not recommended for children, charities, or the working classes. Putting your child benefit in a slot machine is irresponsible. Betting your entire economy on a theory is inspirational. Because sometimes the most impressive impacts are made by the biggest falls. But if it's not your money, it won't be you that hits the ground. That was a party political broadcast from the so-called Conservative Party. God help us all. So, Minister, the reaction to your mini-budget has been generally quite negative, hasn't it? Not true. I was talking to several economists earlier today who said our fiscal event was smashing, that I was looking very well, and have I been working out? The opinion polls have been pretty damning. That's because people don't know that we're going to create a high-wage economy. By giving them pay rises? God no. We want people to set up their own businesses. Maybe build a local version of a hospital, or a fire station, or a police force. Because let's be clear, we have no money left to fund those. On my screen, I'm seeing that the pound is dropping in value as we speak. Well, that's fine. We're not interested in what the markets think. Actually, looking at this graph, it looks like the pound may be rallying. Oh, thank God for that. We always knew the markets would come round eventually, and we are delighted to have their confidence. No, sorry, I was looking at the wrong way round. The pound is actually crashing again. It's all nonsense and we don't care. Why do you think the markets have reacted to your plans by selling the pound? Who says it's because of our plans? I mean, the Queen just died. Maybe looking at lots of pictures of her face made them sad. What? Or maybe they're worried that because of what the mainstream media are saying, there could be a Labour government next, and they're panicking in advance, which is actually quite sensible. The pound has dropped even further. It's approaching parity with the dollar. Well, at least that'll make holidays to America less confusing. No need to check a currency calculator all the time. Because you know you won't be able to afford anything? Precisely. I mean, sources in the city have warned us that they're worried that you don't have a plan to balance the books. We absolutely do have a plan for balancing the books, and we'll be revealing it in November. Why not now? Have you not actually written it yet? We absolutely have written it. We just think it would sound better in November. You know, accompanied by fireworks. And yet, because you haven't reassured the market, your borrowing costs will be much higher the longer you leave it. Yes, we wanted that. Did you think we were trying to play government on easy mode? And as you said that, the pound dropped another 2 points. This is just the beginning. There is so much more to come. Another 3 points down. Taxation is theft. And another 4. If you'll excuse me, I just need to make a phone call.
Thank you, Minister.
Sell it all!
Next up, as NASA smashes a spaceship into a distant asteroid, we ask what would you like to smash a spaceship into, and which members of the cabinet should be on a distant asteroid? This country's economy is in crisis, isn't it? I wouldn't call it a crisis. Then what would you call it? A particular idiosyncrasy? An anomaly? A singularity? You're saying the economy is a black hole. Is that what that word means? I've always wondered. People up and down the country are scared, Minister. Well, they don't have to work with her. I mean, there's no need to be scared. Do you really think that will reassure people? Well, it should. Listen to me. Everything is just fine. And it's probably worse in Japan. Do you regret anything in the mini budget? We've taken decisive action. We've always said we have to be prepared to take the wrong decisions in the interests of the country. I mean, Minister? Look, I think we're all forgetting who the real villain in all this is. Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin cut the top rate of income tax. No, he invaded Ukraine, which caused the energy crisis, which we have solved by guaranteeing that no one in this country will pay over £2,500 for their energy bills. But that's not strictly true, is it? That figure only refers to a typical household, so if you use more, you will pay more. Yes, but typical is just a fancy word for everyone, isn't it? Is it? The point is that people can go into this winter not worrying about their energy bills, and instead worrying about inflation, their pensions and their mortgage bills. But at least they'll be nice and warm as they do that. Look, it's going to be a tough winter, but we are focused on growth. We need this economy to be producing jobs for the future, like cyber butlers or Conservative leaders of the opposition. You say you want growth, but it's all of the unfunded tax cuts and massive borrowing that's spooking the market. Well, they'll feel a lot better when we reveal our iron discipline in spending. Iron discipline? Yes, it's not just the title of my favourite film, it's also what we'll be doing to public sector budgets. Isn't this focus on growth just ignoring inequality? Yes, we've been very clear that as a country we need to stop worrying about how we divide the pie and focus on growing the pie. And how do you grow a pie? In a pie garden? Thank you, Minister. Next up, as Liz Truss prepares for the Conservative Party conference, we ask how many people do you know who were so awful on their honeymoon that their spouse wanted a divorce before it was over? My second-in-command and I are delighted to be taking over the running of this company. It's been a tough few years, and the court case against our former CEO does continue. Can I make it clear that if he is guilty of all the things he's accused of, he should be punished. But until the facts are established, he is a great man with an unblemished reputation who, let's not forget, managed to extract the PR and marketing department from the rest of the company and allow us to set up on our own. He really got that done, and he is my hero. Obviously, due to the death of our honorary chairwoman, we will be having a minute's silence and be closed for lunch. But look out for a little announcement when we're back. We're back and raring to go, and we've just got a little announcement to make. We're knocking down the offices, replacing them with swimming pools, launching a new range of fireworks, and giving everyone in the company a free cup of tea whilst shouting yeehaw! Okay, we accept that shouting yeehaw might not have been appropriate. We won't be doing that. But don't forget about the free cups of tea. There has been an amount of employee and investor resistance to our plan, but we are still laser focused on making this marketing and PR company the best swimming pool-based fireworks emporium that it can be. Did you all miss the thing about the cups of tea? Look, we get it and we've listened. The fireworks are out. We'll simply focus on demolishing the offices and replacing them with swimming pools. Happy? Apparently, some of you are still not happy. I keep getting questions about pay rises and holiday entitlements and pensions, and yet no one seems excited about the potential for snorkelling. Let me be clear, funding the cups of tea will not mean an overall reduction in spending on salaries, as long as you don't mind being paid in Darjeeling. What if I said we were just joking? We definitely weren't joking. The possibility of us having been joking is still on the table. How do you know that our share price crashed because of the swimming pool thing? Lots of companies are having problems at the moment. I mean, look at Russia. There is no question of me firing my second-in-command. We have been working closely together for years. It is with a heavy heart that I deeply respect my second-in-command's decision to leave, because I sacked him. We, as a company, are still committed to the swimming pools idea, but we may have to make do now with filling a sink. Also, all cups of tea will be cold. Time for bed, I think. I wonder what's going to happen in my second day in charge.
It's been a chaotic day in Parliament, with the government in disarray over a confidence vote that may not have been a confidence vote, and a series of resignations that may not have been resignations. Our embarrassing shambles correspondent, Jonathan Goodenough, has more. Yes, that's right. There have been accusations of foul language, manhandling, mansplaining, and even martial arts in the voting lobbies of the House of Commons this evening. Martial arts? Yes, the Health Secretary is alleged to have karate-chopped one member of her party who was going to abstain, then aimed a spinning heel kick to the throat of a potential rebel, although these are, of course, unverified reports at this time. What's been the response? Well, the chief whip was heard to say, "F this, I'm effing out of here, you essing bastard mother effers," and her deputy took his jacket and tie off, then screamed, "You're all b***ing Jeremy Hunts." What was that about, Steve Baker? What? We're now joined by a government minister. What on earth is going on?
We've been clear that the most important thing for the country at the moment is stability. We've said sorry, and it's time to move on.
They're still mopping up blood from the floors of Parliament, Minister.
We've been very clear that we are delivering on our manifesto.
Your manifesto had a pledge to ban fracking.
Yes, fracking must be banned. Banded about as a great solution to the energy crisis.
You just U-turned in the middle of a sentence.
No, he didn't.
Who are you?
I'm the new minister. The previous one was resign fired because he sent a Snapchat to a personal friend containing the entirety of Liz Truss's political strategy.
Don't Snapchats last just 10 seconds?
He also had time to say hello.
This government is in total disarray, isn't it?
Not at all.
You're back?
Yes, the Prime Minister agreed that I hadn't done anything wrong, so gave me my job back.
Right.
However, I think that this shows weak leadership, so I'm going to be resigning to spend more time with my pension plan.
Breaking news, we've just heard that the Prime Minister may have failed to vote for her own 3-line whip, which means that technically she can no longer be part of her own government. Jonathan? In fact, I'm hearing that she may have tried to fire herself, slipped on the blood, fell into another cabinet minister, who then stumbled into the wrong lobby and may have inadvertently voted against the government. He has now been fired, reinstated, resigned, unresigned, then appointed as the new Home Secretary, who I forgot to say earlier, has also gone. Okay.
Also, Anton Deck have just tweeted that there must be a general election, Peppa Pig back to general strike, and Hey Dougie has released a very catchy song calling for armed revolution.
Next up, we're speaking to a very stressed satirist who is begging the government to slow things down a bit, because there are only so many hours in the day, and he has to sleep at some point.
Good morning. I have just been to Buckingham Palace and accepted His Majesty the King's invitation to form a government on his behalf. We also chatted about inheritance tax, and I gave him a few investment tips. Right now, our country is facing a profound economic crisis caused by COVID, Putin's war in Ukraine, and above all, by my predecessor, Liz Truss, who I want to pay tribute to now. She was not wrong in wanting to create growth. I admire her restlessness in trying to achieve that. However, some mistakes were made. These mistakes were not born of ill will or bad intentions, but huge stupidity. In many ways, it wasn't her fault. Can you blame a toddler for burning down the house? Perhaps we shouldn't have given her the matches in the first place. I have now been elected, in the sense that nobody voted for me, to fix this. Think of me as a cleaner who comes in after a large party to... actually, no, not a party. That's no, scratch that. I want to pay tribute to the incredible achievements of Boris Johnson. Without him, everybody would remember that I had to pay a fixed penalty notice too. I treasure him, and like treasure, I hope he is put in a vault and never heard of again. Now here comes the science bit. The mandate that Boris Johnson got in 2019 was not just his mandate, it was a mandate for the whole Conservative Party. The same Conservative Party who just voted for Liz Truss and must not be given any influence ever again. Don't think too much about this bit. Together, we can achieve incredible things. Huge transfers of wealth to the least needy. That's the future that I believe in. A future worthy of the Prime Ministers we've had to sacrifice, and one in which we will fill tomorrow and every day thereafter with hope. The hope that I can't be as bad as the last two. Can I? Watch this space.
Good news, Minister. Our agents in the field have been working hard, and we're now confident that we have a strong sense of Putin's motivations. Excellent news. Your intelligence is vital in bringing this awful war to an end. So I've got a list here of things that really hurt him. If we can keep doing these, then I think we can break his spirit. Go on. Well, the really critical thing is nurses in food banks. Putin absolutely hates nurses in this country working for low pay and having to go to food banks to feed their families. So the more of that he sees, the better. So you're saying that nurses asking for higher pay are actually helping Putin? They may not intend to, but yes. Goodness. He also hates it when our railways run on time. Really? Yep, he loves Mick Lynch and the RMT. Every strike on our railways is a stroke on his soul. Soul? I'm speaking metaphorically. So by caving into union demands, the government would actually be betraying Ukraine? Exactly. Right. Anything else? Well, we've also discovered that he loves planning reform. What? He's absolutely desperate for the UK to put in place a planning system that prioritises affordable housing for young people and works against the vested interests of landlords and developers. So my advice is, don't do that. I knew Theresa Villiers was onto something. She's an absolute hero of the resistance. Are there any positive steps we can take? Well, we know Putin's afraid of our armed forces, so we suggest getting them out and about a bit more. Show him they're not to be messed with. What, like getting them to run our public services during industrial action? Yes, nothing strikes fear into the Russian leader's heart more than a squaddy checking a passport or a Royal Marine changing a bedpan. Good to know. Oh, and he absolutely hates the House of Lords, especially the hereditary peers, so they have to stay. Well, this has been very helpful. It's great to know that our war aims exactly match our political priorities. I love it when that happens. Isn't it lucky? And can I say, it's been a pleasure reporting to you this year. I know some people were sceptical when I moved straight from your office to the security services, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm sorry to see you go. Remind me where you're off to again? The BBC. Splendid. I think everyone in the UK should boycott Netflix. I certainly will be, once I finish The Crown. And Emily in Paris. I was sitting there, just in my underwear. I was literally boiling with rage, watching two young people laughing and enjoying each other's company. That's not what marriage is about, and I should know. I've had 3. Apparently, they just want to be happy. Well, I'm sorry, this is the United Kingdom. That's just not how we do things. It's absolutely appalling that Harry and Meghan are forcing the press to write about them all of the time. We don't want to. No, they make us. It's a form of bullying, really. Yeah, in many ways, the real victims are the press. Yeah, I mean, there are so many other things we want to be writing about, but no, we have to write about them. They're so selfish. Race has nothing to do with it. I didn't even know she wasn't white. But I have to say, the first time I saw her, I did think, this one's going to be trouble. I could just tell there was something about her. She was different. It's got nothing to do with race. No, she was American. I could tell just by looking at her from a distance. Look, if she can't respect our sacred, ancient tradition of curtsying to an old woman because of which family she is from, then I'm sorry, I think she maybe deserves everything she gets. White people take royalty very seriously. We know our place and we never joke about it. That's our culture. And if you can't respect that, then you're being racist. I've seen some people claiming that Meghan was being self-deprecating and showing a sense of humour about the royal family. I'm sorry, self-deprecating and a sense of humour? Where do you think you are? Germany? We never make jokes about the royal family. Even the actual paedophiles. Meghan seems to think that the press were out to destroy her. It's ridiculous. I barely even think about her. She's just irrelevant. And that's something I've made clear in all 3 of the books I've written about her and in my daily Meg blog. I agree with that MP. We should strip them of their titles and strip them of their money and actually just strip them completely, and then maybe cover them in oil and watch them sort of naked and writhing around. Sorry, I just need a minute. I knew Princess Diana. Over many years, I shouted literally dozens of words at Princess Diana, and I'll tell you something for a fact. Meghan is no Princess Diana. I don't fancy her for a start. She's not even blonde. In the end, the best plan is simply to ignore them and hopefully they'll just go away. Now, if you'll excuse me, a woman who once did Meghan's nails has just tweeted that she has weird fingers, so I need to write 1,000 words on that before lunch. Why won't they leave me alone?
And if you'd like more information on exactly what disruption is planned over the festive period, just refer to the handy guide on our website. Now it's time for a bit of culture, as we discuss the books of the year with author and tweeter Sheridan Eves. Lovely to be joining you. Now you've picked out the books that you think that everyone will be talking about this year over Christmas dinner. Yes, and of course when I say everyone, I do of course mean a very small number of people. Of course, so let's get to your top 5 books of the year, and you've broken these down by genre. That's right. So first up, what's your political book of the year? Well, that would have to be Out of the Blue, by my good friends Harry Cole and James Heal, the fascinating story of the rise and fall of Liz Truss. Right, okay,
Next up, probably my favourite category, mystery, crime and thrillers. Yeah, it's a tough one this, but in the end I went for Out of the Blue. It's a gripping tale of a woman who only has 49 days to kill a queen then crash an economy. Can she do it, or will she run out of time? Okay, how about romance? Well, that one's easy. Out of the Blue. How did a simple girl from a northern comprehensive charm so many old men? Think Pride and Prejudice, because both of those things were crucial. I mean, are we still... Okay, apparently we're still doing this. Okay, what's your top pick for horror book of the year? Out of the Blue. It's like a slow-motion car crash. How did we get here? Who let it happen? And the consequences for all of us are terrifying. And finally, it's your top pick for children's book. Presumably that's Out of the Blue as well. Some sort of cautionary tale for young people? No, that would be absurd. My pick for children's book of the year is the Bible. In it. What? My bold reimagining of the good book told through the slang of young people from the streets. Seriously? Yes, it was published in early 1989 and it's been out of print since late 1989, but you can still get it on eBay. I've got boxes in my house. Shameless. So your overall book of the year is Out of the Blue. Hang on, did you get that from the library? Yes, I'm not going to buy it, am I? Although I suppose it's a bit ironic that there will be fewer libraries around because of what happened in here. Next up, as Health Secretary Steve Barclay says that striking health unions have taken a conscious decision to harm people, we ask, does he know that he's projecting, or did that just sound really good in his head?